that the question paper has got 8 questions, right? And out of these 8 questions, these 8 questions are divided in 2 sections. Section A, which has 4 questions, and section B, which has the other 4 questions. So in each section, the first question is one which is compulsory, while the rest 3 are optional in nature. Now, out of the optional questions, the 6 optional questions, you have to do 3 questions. All right. As you can see here, the first 5 questions, 1D to 1E, these are compulsory in nature. Then second, third, fourth, these are optional. Again, the 5th question, it is compulsory in nature. And then the 6th, 7th, 8th questions are optional in nature. Also, the optional questions have 3 parts each. And once you choose which question you have to do, for example, the second question, then you have to attempt all the 3 parts out of it. You cannot pick and choose that. Hello. You will attempt second A.
Hello.
Yeah.
Your voice is lagging.
Okay, hold on. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
It's perfect. It's okay, sir. Fine.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I think Amit has joined in. I'm waiting for him to start with the meeting.
Yes, sir. I have joined.
Yeah. Amit, please switch on your video.
Yeah, sure.
So we have Amit Kumar with us, and I would like to thank him very much to get out time from his busy schedule, because we all know that officers are so busy during these COVID times. So I'll hand over this to Amit. I'll share the screen, the question paper, and Amit will carry on with the meeting.
Sure.
Yes, Amit. Is the screen visible?
Yeah, screen is visible. So, hello everyone.
Hello, sir.
Just yeah, last week we got this latest question paper for geology, and we discussed. Me and Jigyasu sir, both of us discussed the paper, and we analyzed the trends, how the paper has gone, the changes has gone through the previous years. So there has not been much changes in the few aspects, and there has been changes in some aspects. So generally speaking, the changes which have not been there is that the subject remains to be static, and we can check the probability of the questions which are going to be asked is very high. That same questions get repeated again and again, and same it has happened this time. What aspect has changed? What changed last year also and changed this year also is the same, that the application aspect has gone up. We have much more questions which want application of the knowledge. So, but we'll go just briefly one by one through all the questions. We'll not go in very much details, but just we'll take up those questions which what I see is the questions which were a bit application oriented. Because if we see, let's say, start with 1A, explain the ring of fire and places associated with ring of fire. This is not an application based question. This is direct from our notes. If any one of you has gone through the notes or the lectures or even any book or any general book or even a basic Google, then you would know what is ring of fire and which geographic areas are associated with ring of fire. And then we also should know the number of plates, starting from South America, going up towards the northern areas, then converging to past Japan, coming south to Australia. The plates which come in between in those Pacific Oceans are all the plates which are involved here. So we should be knowing that. 1B is basic GIS question. 1C is something which is new, because they are asked about discuss stereoscopy and then its advantage in aerial photo interpretation. Add a note to elements of photo interpretation. If you look at the second part of the question, aerial photo interpretation, this is simple. Elements of photo interpretation, this is also in notes. But the first point, discuss stereoscopy. This was something which is new. What is stereoscopy? And then its advantages. So this part of the question is a new part. What answer of all this question is, I think will be discussed in details by Jigyasu. If we come towards 1D, stereographic projection in structural geology, this also is an easy question. And so is the nomenclature and types of geological plotting technique. Again, I think geological plotting technique is something which is not so common because this is a field-based question. Field-based question means when geology is taught in college and classes, there are some aspects which are field-oriented, where a student goes to the field, sees the rocks and develops the folds and trends and everything. Those part of question is covered here, but it's a very basic question. On a stereographic map, we have pole-based projection, we have great circle-based projection. These are the two types of projections. If we go to 1E, discuss stress and strain ellipse, again direct from notes. Then these were the compulsory questions. So if you look at the compulsory questions, again, only question of stereoscope is something which is something new. So and again, stereoscopic question, we have two parts of the question. So I think at max you can say total 5 marks is something which is new, 45 marks is something which is again in the syllabus and from the repetition which we have got in the subject. 2A is about lithospheric plates, cause of plate tectonics, and which is very simple. And another question, which is the places which involved where the major earthquake caused tsunami in Indian Ocean 2004. This is something which is not normal question, it's a GS type question, that which plates were involved in major earthquake which caused a tsunami in Indian Ocean 2004. So again, one fact, a single fact, and other questions are just a normal questions. Then if we check out the next, discuss the geomorphic features, cite any 4 aggradation, degradation forms. Again, very basic from fluvial process. So geomorphic process, there are many geomorphic processes. If you look at the fluvial process, aggradation means basic thing, anything which adds up is aggradation, degradation, where erosion and all those features which leads to a decline in the landforms are degradation landforms. So fluvial process, we have both the structures which are given in our notes also. 2C, what does attitude of bed mean? Very simple, strike, dip, direction, dip, amount, and horizontal and represent map of just a map making. It's a very easy question, straightforward from our structural aspect. Again, if you look at these three, 2A is something which we can say is from plate tectonics, which is general geology. 2B is from geomorphology. 2C is from structural geology. That means it's not, it means that there's a combination of different chapters in a single question. It's not that 2A, 2B, 2C all are from the same syllabus of geomorphology or same syllabus structure. Both all are from a different syllabus. That means that we earlier, sometimes it used to happen 2 or 3 years ago, that the questions in like 2A, 2B, 2C would be from the same chapter. So you could even skip a chapter and think that based on luck that questions will not come from that chapter, and you can skip them because they are optional questions. But now you cannot do that. So it's compulsory to read each and every chapters with equal thoroughness. Then if you look at the 3A question.
Yes, Amit.
What are the fundamental concepts used in geomorphological studies? And explain the concept. Little of the Earth's topography is older than Tertiary. Most of it no longer the place to sit. Good. The first thing is the fundamental concept of geomorphological studies. There are many concepts. 4 or 5 main concepts are there, which are already covered in our lectures and notes. And next, if we see that little of Earth's topography is older than Tertiary and most of it is older than Pleistocene. It's a very general question. Very interesting thing, general questions are harder to solve than the specific questions. Because general questions, you do not know what to write and what to not to write. Let's just focus on this question. Little of Earth's topography is older than Tertiary. This means that most of the rock forms which are formed before Tertiary are not something which are on surface of the Earth. Most are below the surface of the Earth. And so what will you see on the Earth's topography means the surface of the Earth. What will be visible is something which is newer. Again, why they are not visible on the surface of the Earth? Because when they are on the surface of the Earth, they will be eroded and they will go down and the new rock layer will come on that. And in Tertiary, we have a lot of deposition. There have been some ages where the deposition has been less, but the deposition has been very high in Tertiary because of suitable climatic environment which we had. So that's why the Earth's topography will be mostly Tertiary. And even when we talk about topography, it's not always about the rocks, it's always also about the soil forms. And the soil form which will be there will be mostly from the tertiary only. There will not much soil which will coming from the basement. So these things all will end up. But how to get marks in this question will be from the examples. So you will have to cite some strata and landforms. And from where will you cite? You will cite from the stratigraphic knowledge that you have. So in stratigraphy, we draw the maps. Let's take example of the Aravalli Craton. We talk about Aravalli Craton. We draw the map of Aravalli Craton. And in that map, only few places we have the rocks which are from the older ages. And even on that Craton map, 90% of the map is from the tertiary ages, where we say that new land, new forms of soil and rocks. So in that way, you have to explain the answers by giving more examples, and then only you will be fetching marks in these questions, which are general questions. Then coming to 3B, isostratian theories, very easy question, straightforward. 3C, fold domain. Discuss any 8 types of fold depending on the closure of fold domain. This is a question which is, again, I think first time it has come in the UPSC domain, because though we have studied many types of fold classifications, flutic classification, and many other things on many differences. But this is something, fold domain is something which has been asked for the first time. So this is the only surprise question, I would say, after stereoscopy in the entire paper. So this 15-marker question is something which is a surprise question. And Jigasu sir will be telling you in more details about what exactly fold domain is and what are the 8 types of fold depending on the closure of the fold domains. Then coming to the next question, again checking the 3 question. First question from geomorphology 3A, 3B isostasis from the general geology, and 3C from the structural geology. Again, there's a mix of chapters. It's not concentrated on a single chapter. 4A, water hanging and footwall and different types of faults depending on relative movements of the wall, straightforward from structural geology. 4B, number 1, water atmospheric windows in remote sensing. A very simple question, 5-marker. You do not have to even explain much more. Just a few diagrams about a few atmospheric windows will be enough. Second, what are spectral reflectance curves? Explain how clear water, dry soil, and healthy vegetation can be demarcated from using spectral reflectance curves with neat sketches. Very straight sketch you have to draw, and already we have covered this in syllabus. This is a very general question where clear water, healthy vegetation, how will you differentiate between clear water and a non-clear water, even saline water and a clear water? How will you differentiate between healthy vegetation and vegetation which has already dried out? So all this can be done using a spectral reflecting curve which we draw, and this is covered in our topics in our notes and already lectures. 4C, drainage pattern, drainage texture, drainage anomaly. And their classification, significance, and photos in aerial photos and satellite image. So drainage pattern is very simple. We have covered always. Drainage anomaly has been asked once in previous year questions of UPSC and forest. Drainage texture is something which has been asked for the first time. Drainage pattern, you will have to draw the 4 drainage pattern, just as simple. Drainage anomaly also, a basic definition is there, but there are many examples you can plot. Their general classification has been asked. You can easily give significance of those geological interpretation in aerial and okay. So you have to what are the interpretation significance in the geological interpretation. But drainage texture is something which has been asked for the first time. And again, Jigyasu sir will go in details and will tell you about what the drainage texture actually means. Then so overall, if you look at the 4 section A of our paper 1. So in confirmed questions, which are the first 5 questions of 10 marker each, 1 question is something which 5 marks is something which is new, 45 marks is something which is already we know. And if you look into question number 2, it's completely from the syllabus. Question number 3, fold domain is something which is not in the syllabus. And for A, B, and C, only drainage texture definition is something which is not in the syllabus. Others are everything in the syllabus. And when I say in the syllabus, it just means that they are repetitive questions. They have been continuously asked over the years, over which we can guarantee say that these are the questions which are going to be repeated with a high probability. Section B, compulsory question 5A, megafossils and diagnostic fossils. Very easy. What is paleogeography? Tools employed in paleogeographic reconstruction. Again, it's simple as the plate tectonics. What we use in the reconstruction of plate tectonics, same will be the paleogeography. 5C, lithostratigraphy, diagnostic property of lithography units, giving example of Indian stratigraphy. Again, direct question from the syllabus. Then 5D, if we go, discuss characteristics of confined and unconfined aquifers, again directly from the hydrogeology. 5C, discuss briefly characteristics of earthquake resistant structure, again very straightforward. This earthquake resistant structures we study in both topics when we talk about environmental geology as well as when we talk about our engineering geology, which is common in paper A1 and paper 2. So question number 5, if you section B, question number 5, all the questions are very easy, straightforward, very scoring. 6, if we go, 6A, discuss the evolutionary trend in the linear equidae and give any 2 examples of their Indian occurrences. Again, very straightforward. In each of the each year, either you will be asked question from a horse, elephant, or a human. So they have gone for Icarus horse this time. 6B, describe the Cenozoic stratigraphy of Kutch Basin, comment on its fossil content and deposition environment. Again, straightforward from stratigraphy. 6C, discuss briefly as to why artificial recharge is essential required in confined aquifer. Suitable examples and of a typical injection well for rooftop harvesting of water. Again, very simple, straightforward. Artificial recharge, why would you need in a confined aquifer? Because they do not have a natural source of getting filled as unconfined aquifer has, because they are connected to the top surface. So as the surface water connection is not there, that's why you have. And then a rooftop rain harvesting model is something which you have to study. There are new models coming up for the rainwater harvesting. You can take those up and make a good answer. 6 is a very easy question, A, B, and C. But again, if you look at all the 3 questions, 6A is from something which is from the paleontology. 6B is something which is from the stratigraphy, and 6C is something which is from our hydrogeology. Again, all the different topics have been covered. It's not from a single topic. Question number 7, if we go, describe the stratigraphy division of Gondwana supergroup. Why only certain Gondwana sections are rich in coal seam? Very easy. Straightforward Gondwana stratigraphy question. And why sections are rich in coal seam? Because at those times there was a sufficient environment in which there were ample amounts of animals as well as trees in which and they would have deposited. Some of the sections, for example, if we go into barren sandstone formations in Gondwana. So there are formations where there has been no deposits whatsoever, because at that time there was a very dry environment in which it was not sustainable for the life forms to exist there. 7B, trace fossil, preservation of trace fossil and preservation. First questions that we discuss in paleontology. 7C, describe various types of dam which was a sketch. Very easy, straightforward. Comment on geological condition required for a selection of each type of dam. Again, is mostly covered in the syllabus. Just you have to apply your mind and answer this question. So 7 also is a very straightforward and easy question. 7A, B, and C, you can judge that again. There one question is from stratigraphy, one from paleontology, and again one is from hydrogeology. 8A, brief account of sources of groundwater pollution in India and discuss the management and groundwater resources. Straightforward syllabus. 8B, water microfossil, discuss application of microfossil in petroleum exploration. Again, straightforward from our notes, we have covered most of these things. And what is mass extension? Comment on various hypotheses proposed for the cause of Permian Triassic mass extension. So again, a general question, specific hypothesis proposed for cause of PT mass extension is something I think which we have not discussed. What was PT mass extension we have discussed, and what were the effects of that we have discussed. So what hypothesis, what are the causes which were involved in this? I think Jigasha will go in details and we'll discuss it. But what are mass extension? Something which is very common thing. All the boundaries which we have, KT boundary, and before that all the boundaries which we have, each year they ask one question from each boundary, which we call as a boundary problem. So you can go through them. So this is the overall paper 1 discussion. I just went through the paper. I think Jigasha sir will go in details with each question and in details.
All right, nice. So yeah, as we talked about, these were the initial first 5 questions, and in them, the first question was about Ring of Fire. So Ring of Fire, we have already covered in a great detail in our notes, of course. But yes, for everyone else, if you go through any general geology book, who is not even going through any lectures or anything, if you cover any general geology book, this is one section that you are going to read in there. There is a topic in our syllabus itself which asks about volcanic belts. So this question was asked from there. All right, and one more thing, the same question was asked in GS in 2020 paper 1. So this is a repeated question in that sense as well. So I'll provide you this slide. You can look over here. We have discussed all the plates which are involved in this, as well as the geographic areas. You have to draw the map that is essential in this question. All right, that was the first question. Regarding GIS question, again, a very conventional question. The question asked about what is GIS, its concepts, its functions, its components. So yes, we went through the concepts of GIS, that how it converts into a geo database, how it relates different data sets, remote sensing data sets, maps, attribute table, and digital data profiles. We covered how attribute tables are formed and how they are related to maps, topographic maps in geographical, which is in the form of geographical data. So this is a screenshot of those notes in our lecture series. You can go through them. Also, GIS is something which anyone can just Google it out and you will find a lot of content about GIS. So make your own notes. One good source about this is EPG Pathshala. All right. So if anyone wants to look at something, so you can go through there. All right. Then the next question was about stereoscopy. Yes, this was one question that was a little bit complicated in nature because it was new, as people were saying. So this is something which we can be a little prideful about, because we had foresight to cover this in our lecture series. We covered stereoscopy while studying aerial photography. If you remember, what stereoscopy is, basically that you are looking at one area, this AB area in this image, with two different positions. First position is that left image and the second position is that right image. Excuse me, can you please mute? Yeah. So here what we are doing is that we are looking at one particular area from two different angles. And because we are forming two images which are called stereo pairs, we are able to calculate the depth related data. So in that is how we are able to understand the vertical aspect of the imagery as well. And this, as we discussed in our class, the application of this particular part as well, that we can utilize this to create digital elevation models. And we can utilize this to understand geomorphology of an area. We also understood this, that we in our lives with our own eyes are doing stereoscopy all the time, because our two eyes here, as I have depicted, are looking at one point from two different angles. So this was something which was covered in our class, and this is something, if you want to read, you can read from, you will have to go into a little detail into one of the books of remote sensing. You can take a book from of any Indian author or any foreign author, and you will find this topic there. All right. And the next part was, of course, a very conventional part that was about elements of photo interpretation. We have covered the elements of photo interpretation in great detail, all these elements, and we even covered the hierarchy of these elements. So this again, you can find in EPG Pathshala notes as well, if you want to go through this particular part. Yes, this one question was something which has been a little complicated because it is application based. So stereographic projection, as we know, are a very conventional part of our syllabus. They are directly mentioned in the syllabus in two places, one in crystallography and other in structural geology. So here they asked that stereographic projection in structural geology. They asked us about types, nomenclature, and plotting techniques. So of course, stereographic projection, what they are, how they are made, that is usually covered everywhere. That you can cover from any particular part. Their types. So there are three types, as you can look here. One is equal angle, which is, we all know about that. That is WRF-net. WRF-net is used usually in crystallography. The other is equal area projection. Equal area projection is one which preserves the area. And this is the one plot which we use in structural geology. And this third diagram is nothing but a polar view of the same equal area map. So here we are looking at the equator, and if we have a polar view, this is something which we will look at. And this is a third type of net. It is named as Billings net or polar net. So because they asked about nomenclature, So we can write these three names separately, or else you can just mention equal area and equal angle in the types. Next part was about plotting techniques, and yes, this was one part which is a little technical because this is application based. So when we talk about plotting techniques, what happens is that we can plot either lines or planes on a stereographic projection. When we plot planes in stereographic projection, as you can look here in this particular diagram, on the right hand side, the uppermost ABCD 4 diagrams are there. There you can see that for plotting, you need some specific techniques. Now, because this plotting techniques was a part of a 10 marker question, so maximum it carried 2 or 3 marks. So if you would have just mentioned the pi diagram and the beta diagram, which we are going to cover in our classes, that would have been sufficient for you to get some decent amount of marks in this particular question. Similarly, lines are plotted using their plunges. Again, this diagram here depicts how lines are plotted. This you can go through later on. I'll tell you the source. You can find this in Ramsey. There's a book by a very famous author, Dr. Ramsey. You can look at that book and you can find this there. We are going to cover this in our classes in more detail because now they have asked us about the plotting techniques. This was one surprising question. All right. So next question about the plate tectonics. It was a very, very conventional question. And as we know, it asked about lithospheric plates and what is the theory of plate tectonics. That is everything which every student covers. One surprising part was that they asked us about the Indian Ocean tsunami. So if you look at this particular map, is the map visible to everyone? Is this map visible? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you look at this particular map, and if you even do not know that which particular plates were involved, you can think about that the earthquake, if you remember, occurred somewhere near the Andaman Islands. All right. So this area here, this area would have been the area where that earthquake must have occurred. You at least know the major plates of the area. So the major plates of the area, of course, one is Indian plate, which is of course a part of larger Indo-Australian plate, and the other is Eurasian plate. If you know nothing about these microplates, you can just mention Indian plate and Eurasian plate and expect that a liberal checker might provide you some marks. If you go into the detail, the name of the plates that were involved was the Indian plate and the Burma microplate. Now, because Burma plate it's a microplate, it is usually considered to be a part of larger plate. That larger plate is Sunda plate. So this Sunda plate is something which you had to remember to particularly answer this question. Here I have taken this source from USGS. They have mentioned that the plates that were involved were Indian plate and Sunda plate. In some places, you might also find directly written that Burma microplate is part of Eurasian plate. So that is also seen in some literature. If you look at Wikipedia, it says that. But in my opinion, in my understanding, you can safely write Sunda plate, and that would be the correct answer of this question. All right. So the next important question, which was a little bit off the chart, was the fundamental concepts in geomorphology. If you remember, this fundamental concepts is mentioned directly in our syllabus, okay? But usually people tend to skip that. This particular part is provided in book by Thornbury. If anyone wants to go through geomorphology, you can go to the book Thornbury and you can read it. It's not a very big book, like 250-300 pages book. You can read selected parts from that. There they provide you the fundamental concepts in geomorphology. Now in our lecture series, what we did was that we did not only cover the fundamental concepts, which were 10 concepts, if you all remember. We also covered some modern concepts, which are here shown in the right hand part of the diagram, whereby we talked about systems, variables, then scale, magnitude, frequency, sensitivity, and a lot of other things about geomorphological landforms. So these together combinedly can be considered to be the basic concepts of geomorphology. This you had to mention as one part of the answer. The other part was this: little of Earth's topography is older than Tertiary and most is no older than Pleistocene. This is nothing but one of the fundamental concepts which is mentioned by Thornbury. Thornbury has mentioned 10 concepts, and this is the 7th concept that he mentions in his book related to geomorphology. And again, we can take some comfort in knowing that this was well covered in our lecture series. Here I have put a screenshot of the same, whereby we explained this with 2 examples, one of Himalayas and the other one of Aravalis. Here we said that Himalayas have attained what their landmarks that we see presently, they have been formed recently in Pleistocene. So, and similarly for Aravalli, what we saw was that in Precambrians, they might have been huge fold mountains, but by the beginning of Cenozoic, they had attained their present altitude. That is, they were in the form of low altitude ridges as we see them presently. So these were the 2 examples even that we covered in the class. You can go through the book Thornbury and you will find this concept there as well in detail. Yes, this was another technical question about fold domain. So let's just cover these 4 questions and then I'll take some doubts. So this question about fold domain, this was difficult, and difficult why? Only because of the term. If you look at the concept is well covered in every literature. Fold domain is nothing but the area or the region that lies between 2 inflection points or 2 inflection lines or surfaces. What are inflection lines? Inflection lines are those where the fold changes its curves. So from antiform in this particular region, the fold became synformal in this region. Right? So that is what an inflection line is, and the region that lies between 2 inflection lines is the fold domain. So this concept, why it became difficult? Because this term was not very common. That is why this question became a little difficult. What are their types? So of course, we all know there are many types: antiformal, synformal, and then we have discussed in class that there are anticlines and synclines, and what are the differences between antiforms and anticlines. So that is something which must have helped you here. Then there are vertical folds, monoclines, neutral folds, all these have been written over here. You can go through them later on. This part was again covered in the book by Ramsay. So this book that I'm mentioning again and again is a very bulky book. So it is not something which is recommended to be read for civil services examination preparation. Some selected portions can be read, but you can also rely on the class notes, because apart from this question, usually the questions that are asked from folder of very conventional nature. All right. And then next part was about this 4th question. This 4th question, the important part in this was the atmospheric window and spectral reflectance curve. So atmospheric windows and spectral reflectance curves can be read from any conventional book of remote sensing. Spectral reflectance curve were covered in detail in class, as well as atmospheric windows. And why I'm stressing on this? Because this spectral reflectance curve is a repeated question. It is asked almost every alternate year in remote sensing, especially in the recent years. So that is how the previous year questions help you, because once you solve them, you can be assured that 70% of the questions will be those which you have already seen or solved. All right. And then the 4th question was about drainage, in which you had to talk about pattern, texture, and anomaly. So pattern is something about which we all have read in great detail. We know what pattern is. There are trellis pattern and all those kind of patterns that we have read about. Texture was a new term. It is a term that is used in drainage basin morphometry. So we have read drainage basin morphometry earlier, but this one term I think we have missed upon. So drainage texture is nothing but it is a relative spacing of drainage lines in a basin. So as you can see in a rock, how we classify a rock as coarse grained or fine grained on the basis of if the mineral size is large or small and how closely they are clubbed together. Similarly in drainage, if the relative spacing of drainage line is less, that is there are more drainage, more streams in a particular area, we say that it has a fine drainage texture. And if the relative spacing is very, very high, there are very few streams in a particular area, we say it has a coarse drainage texture. So this was one term that has come out of the box. Considering drainage anomaly, this particular term though not discussed in class, but yes, it was a part of our test series. So if anyone has gone through the discussion of test series, which Amit sir has done, we had already presented this question, that what is drainage anomaly and its significance. And we came to this question only from previous year question, because this has been asked earlier once. Now, if anyone does not know what a drainage anomaly is, still you can write some points about it, because they just asked definition. What you can write? Anomaly. What is an anomaly? Anomaly is something which is different from the norm. That is what you should expect in a particular situation, in a particular morphology, that drainage pattern is not occurring. So for example, in youthful stage, you expect that a river will form gullies, right? Sorry, canyons, or valleys, deep valleys. But there might be some reasons because of which those particular geomorphic features might not be occurring in youthful stage. Then it becomes an anomalous pattern. That is what I have mentioned here. So just by the term drainage anomaly, anomaly is something which is different from what you expect. You could have written the definition of this particular question. All right, that is section A. Now, if anyone has any doubts in section A, you can ask. You can unmute yourself and you can ask any doubts if you have in section A right now. All right, everything is
Sir,
clear?
sir, I have first question was compulsory to everyone, and then we have second, third, and fourth, out of which we have to do two of them.
Yes. No, not two of them. Out of the remaining 6 questions. So first and fifth question are compulsory. But then second, third, fourth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Out of these 6 questions, you have to do 3 questions. It's like that. You have to at least do one from each section. So out of second, third, fourth, at least one question has to be answered. All right. So that also gives us that comfort. Yes, just 1 second. That also gives us that comfort. So for example, the third question was a little difficult in nature. You could have completely skipped this because you did not know about fold domain. You might also have some doubts about the concept. So you could have skipped this question completely. And that's how you could have proceeded. You can ask your question.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, question number 2C.
2C.
जो सर जो second part है, explain how these are represented on map.
हाँ.
सर है तो मतलब वो ऐसा ही है, बस वो है क्या मतलब representation उसकी? कैसे करते हैं इसको represent?
Okay, so this is something here which is very simple. You can find this in any book. You can go through Billings. It is mentioned over there. This is a very, very basic concept. इसको map कैसे करते हैं? Based on the dips of the bed, you can map them on a topographic sheet. So this I will discuss in class, but it's a very basic concept. You can go through any book like Billings. It is mentioned over there very clearly. आप वहां से पढ़ सकते हैं इसको.
Right? And symbol ही बनाना है ना, मतलब एक symbol ही बनाएंगे, जैसे dip का जो symbol है उतना ही तो बनाना है.
हाँ, exactly. That's what you have to do. You can at most अगर आपको थोड़ा सा दिखाना है तो you can draw some maps. तो आप vertical bed बनाइए, उसके सामने दिखा दीजिए कि topographic map पे how it is going to look like. So that might give you a little more marks अगर time है तो.
ठीक है सर.
All right. So I hope that यहाँ तक सबको clear था. 2 questions which were surprising. One was spectroscopy, one was fold domain. So these 2 questions were which were little bit surprising, and drainage texture. This was something which usually people do not read. So apart from these, every other was very conventional type kind of question which you can find in standard books. All right, coming to section B, the first 5 questions were the easiest questions that you can ask for in the compulsory question. Trust me, every year they provide us some questions in the compulsory section which are little difficult to do. But here, all these 5 questions were one of the easiest questions that you could have asked for. So for example, what are megafossils? And name of 3 age diagnostic megafossils in Indian stratigraphy. There are so many megafossils that we read about. We read all about Gondwana fossils. We read about Shivalik fossils. You could have mentioned any 3 of them, and your part would have been done here. Then paleogeography, what it is, of course, very simple question. And tools employed in paleogeography. So we have studied about tools employed in paleogeographic reconstruction in general geology itself, whereby we know that how do we correlate different kind of beds, different kind of fossils, and then there are plethora of techniques which we have studied for paleogeographic reconstruction in our general geology section. From there, those same tools you could have written over here and could have fetched like easily 7 to 8 marks out of these 10. Very easy question. Lithostratigraphy, direct question mentioned in the syllabus. You have to read about it. And the diagnostic properties, of course, there are different type of diagnostic properties of lithological units, their rock types, their mineralogy, their color, the microstructures that you see, all of them. You should have mentioned them and you just had to enlist. So not even describe them, just write their names. It was that simple. Confined and unconfined aquifer, one of the most basic questions of hydrogeology. We all study them. You can study them from any source. You will get to know this answer. And earthquake resistant structures, again, simple question, though it is technical. But why it is simple? Because it is directly mentioned in your syllabus of engineering geology and is covered thoroughly in any particular source which you can find. Again, you can read EPG Pathshala for this if you have not gone through any lectures, while it is covered in our lecture and notes completely. Next part, sixth question, evolutionary trend in equidae. So as somebody had already asked, this is one question that is repeated again and again. They either ask evolutionary trend in equidae or proboscidae or homo. So what you can do, humans. So what you can do here is that you can learn the evolutionary structure, that which organism came first at what age, some table like this, which is mentioned anywhere in any source. It is mentioned in our notes. Then here, as someone was asking कि content कम पड़ जाता है. So this is how you can increase that content. यहाँ पर what they have done is that in our notes as well, that we have described how those digits evolved. What was those particular evolutions? So for example, their height increased. For example, initially they were there were many toes in their foot, and later on as they came on proceeding, so number of digits reduced. So that is one thing you can write about. There were evolution in their jaws, which we have mentioned here. That is something which you could have mentioned. Agar ye mention karenge, there is sufficient amount of information here for you to cover the whole pages. There are mostly 3 pages that are provided. You can cover them with quality information. That is all the examiner is looking for here. Now the question of Cenozoic stratigraphy of Kutch. This 6B question. No, this is not an easy question. Many people might get confused that stratigraphy of Kutch, okay, we have read this, but no. What we have read is Mesozoic stratigraphy of Kutch. If you remember properly, we read about Jurassic of Kutch and the ammonites that are found there. So Pachamchari, Umia, all those beds that we studied, those were from Mesozoic. Here they surprised us. They surprised us by asking Cenozoic stratigraphy of Kutch. And this question was of good 15 marks, I think. So this is not a conventional question. This is not usually covered, because when we talk about Cenozoic, we usually read about Shivaliks, we read about Assam, at most Kashmir and Shimla. But we do not usually read about the Kutch Basin and the Cenozoic there. This can be covered from historical stratigraphy of Dr. Ravindra Kumar's book is there. This can be covered from that. Here I have mentioned that particular stratigraphy as well as the fossil content that is found there. But the thing is that if you go on remembering each particular stratigraphy which has less probability to be asked, it is very little cost to benefit ratio. So the benefit that comes out is very less, and the amount of time that you give in it is very high. So I will say that since this is not a question which is usually repeated, this is something which you can safely skip. Okay, next question was about rooftop water harvesting. So rooftop water harvesting is a very conventional question. They ask us about rooftop water harvesting in every few years, and everyone knows about it. This time what they did was that they asked us about injection well for rooftop water harvesting. They tried to complicate the question a little bit by asking you something in detail. Now, how you can answer this particular question if you do not know that what kind of injection well is there in rooftop water harvesting. You can simply draw a diagram of a normal injection well that you can think of. What does a normal injection well might look like? A normal injection well is something in which dips down up to the confined aquifer, because injection well का purpose ही यही है that you provide water to the confined aquifer which is not getting naturally recharged because it is covered by impermeable strata. This is what you have drawn here in this diagram. So it was, if you did not know anything, you could have drawn a very simple diagram like this, and that would have helped you in getting some marks at least. It would not have been a complete, blowout in respect to your answer. This particular diagram on the right hand side is a detailed diagram of a rooftop injection well. Again, conceptually, the two diagrams are very similar. If you see properly, the same thing is happening here, that there is an impervious layer under which there is a porous formation. So this becomes a confined aquifer. And your injection well is going to be drilled up to a depth that it reaches this porous formation. But then there are few components which you can write extra in order to get more marks. They have been mentioned here. This is something which you can write, but again, a schematic diagram would have fetched you good marks as well. So one little bit variation they did in this particular question of hydrogeology. All right.
Sir,
then yes.
In aquifers, what are the different types? Means can we have a next year question? Maybe means what are the different aquifers types? And
yes, that's a very normal question, very general question asked again and again in previous year questions. You have to write about confined aquifer, unconfined aquifer, purged aquifer. There are different types of aquifer that we read in hydrogeology. Once you go through hydrogeology lecture series or any general book of hydrogeology, you will get to know about that. It's very general question that you are asking. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right. Then coming to 7th question, they asked about Gondwana stratigraphy, which we all read, which we all know in detail. But they asked us that one particular thing, that why only certain intervals are coaliferous. This was something which was conceptual in nature, because you need to correlate that the layers that are occurring, in which coal is occurring, you had to correlate with paleoclimate here. So we have read about paleoclimate of Gondwana in great details. We know that how climate changed from glacial to warm humid to there were variable arid conditions, and then again return of warm phase. We have read this in our notes, and you can also read this in Dr. Ravindra Kumar's book as well. Here I have put a screenshot of the notes where we read this, and here I have written out how weather changed or how climate changed right from bottom to top. And jahan par bhi, wherever there was warm and humid phase, there was vegetation, swamps were formed, and ultimately those were the layers which became coal rich. So Barakar is one which is coal rich, and Raniganj is one which is coal rich. But in between them lies barren measures. So as the name suggests, barren. Why barren? Because there are no coal seams in there. And why is it so? Because they were deposited in arid climate. That is, there was very little rainfall. That is how you had to correlate in this answer. So if you have read Gondwana system very carefully, very thoroughly, you could have answered this very easily. Next was about trace fossils and their significance. So trace fossils are direct question from notes or wherever from you can prepare. You have to prepare about their modes of fossilization. There are different modes: habitat, movement, nutrition, reproduction, their association. All these things have been mentioned here, and you can find them in any general paleontological book. They went into little detail and asked us about their geological significance. So again, this is something jisme you had to be a little creative. If you did not know the detail, you could have fetched your answer right from this particular diagram, this particular thing, that you know what trace fossils are. So you know that the habitat and movement, the trails that they leave, the organisms have left on the rock strata. So what do they tell us? They tell us about their behavior, the behavior of those particular life forms. So this could be one significance. This you should have read, you could have written directly. Then trust me, almost every fossil helps us in identifying one or other kind of sedimentary environment. This is again one thing which you should have written, though you had to go into little detail. This we will discuss in our class, and you can go through one book. There is a book by Clark for paleontology. You can go through that and you can find the geological significance there as well. So this was question on trace fossils. And then the last question. The last question had again 3 parts: groundwater pollution, very generic question; microfossils, very straightforward question; and the application in petroleum geology have been repeatedly asked, both in forest and civil services. So this is well covered in our notes. And iske liye for application part, those people who are not going through any lecture series, आप लोगों को थोड़ा सा you have to search for this. You might need to go through some more detail in some particular microfossil books to go through these applications. There are applications in different domains, in petroleum exploration, in paleoclimate interpretation, etc., that you have to go through. Last question was about mass extinction. So, and they asked us about various hypotheses or various causes of PT mass extinction. So देखिए, mass extinction के बारे में everyone knows about what mass extinctions are. That yes, a lot of life that were present on the surface of the earth, on the earth, died out. And PT mass extinction is especially very famous because they say that almost 90% of the species that lived in the seas, in the marine, that were marine species, died out. It is also termed as great dying. अब यहाँ तक तो ठीक है, but now they are asking us about various hypotheses. Now, if you do not know, in this case of particular extinction, you do not know what are the various hypotheses. Of course, we are going to read them particularly here. But if you do not know, what you can do is, you can think about that usually what are the causes by which animals die out. If you have read paleontology very well, you must know that whenever supercontinents form, usually the sea levels fall. And whenever sea levels fall, the marine life dies out. So see here, that is one of the causes that has been proposed, that Pangea was formed during these times. If you did not know particularly, thoda sa correlation kiya ja sakta tha. Another possible cause is asteroid and meteorite impact. So again, a very general cause which has been cited for many mass extinction, though it is not particularly applicable to PT mass extinction. Usually it's cited for KT1. Right, the extinction that occurred at the end of Cretaceous, in which the dinosaurs died. But फिर भी, some hypotheses do suggest that asteroids and meteorite impact were there, could have been written as one. Another very common cause of mass extinction is climate change. We all know that it is happening at present as well. It has happened in the past as well. So again, if you did not know what was the specific thing, you could have generally mentioned climate change. Now that was the primary cause of PT mass extinction, because during these times extreme global warming occurred. Now if we go into details, what happened was that during these times certain lava were erupted. We have read about large igneous province in general geology in very first classes that we studied. These large igneous provinces are nothing but when large amount of magma is erupted on the surface. So likewise, during these times Siberian traps were erupted. When these Siberian traps were erupted, they resulted in a lot of CO2 in the atmosphere, which resulted in this global warming. Now, as global warming occurred, we also know what is presently occurring, that gas hydrates are hypothesized to be melting. If gas hydrates melt, methane level rise. So that is also something which happened during these times, that methane level rose. All these formed a positive feedback loop, that temperature kept on increasing. And CO2 poisoning occurred, oxygen decreased in the atmosphere, and this is cited as the primary cause of PT mass extinction. So this is what you had to specifically write, but agar if you do not know specifically, you could have generally written some answers in this particular question. So yes, that is what our first paper was all about. If you have any doubts, you can ask.